Everyone listen to me?
Waalaikumsalam Dr. Saiful.
Can you hear me?
Ya, masing-masing mendengar. Saya rasa cuma masing-masing muted.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I
okay.
can hear you.
Okay.
Dr. Saiful can start whenever you are ready, ya.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning everyone. Thank you very much for for attending this webinar. So before we start, perhaps just to share a few general rules of our webinar. So basically, hopefully everyone will be on silent mode. You can talk if you wish. You just press on off of the mute and then you can talk. But maybe you can talk one person at a time. Okay. Otherwise, you can post your questions or anything that you would like to ask on the chat board. And then if you could not hear from me, so maybe you can put on a message on the chat board as well. So maybe someone can alert me. If I'm too fast or slow, let me know as well, because maybe I might be too fast or maybe too slow. Okay, so just let me know. And you can stop me at any time to clarify important matters. So I think this is basically a two-way interaction, talking about the conversion of face-to-face to online assessment. So perhaps, hopefully this is not only my flaw, but everyone's flaw. So before we start, perhaps I would like to have some ideas on this. I have two questions for you. So basically, I would like to get your response through menti.com. Just put on the code 430756, and then maybe you can respond through your maybe laptop, your handphone, whatsoever. Here's the first question: familiarity with borang penawar khusus. Maybe you can start to respond now while waiting for other people to get into this webinar. Four three zero seven five six 43. How many of us basically, let me check. Okay. So I give another 1 minute for you to respond before we go to the next question. Another 1 minute. Okay, that's good. At least more than 80% at least familiar to very familiar. So now let's go to the second one. Oh, okay. It's about familiarity with student learning time from assessment. So yeah. Okay, another 1 minute. Okay, good. Thank you so much for the response. So basically, in terms of BPK, most of you are very familiar, or at least familiar. And then maybe about SLT, perhaps we will focus more SLT compared to BPK later on when we discuss about conversion of face-to-face to online assessment. Okay, thank you for your feedback. Okay, now let's start with the real task. Okay, just to highlight another time, one more time, be on silent mode most of the time. If you wish to talk, just on your mic and then you can talk, but please, a person talks at a time. And then else you can just post your question on the chat board, and perhaps I would like to request a bit help from Dr. Azida maybe just to alert me on important question that we need to discuss afterward. Okay, now the focus of today's discussion is about conversion of face-to-face based into online assessment based on the learning outcomes, as well as student learning time. And perhaps we will discuss, and perhaps first I will perform the conversion based on an example from BPK, and then perhaps if anyone of you like to share your BPK, and then perhaps you like to maybe do another examples on your own BPK so that other people can follow through and then consolidate their understanding, please do so, and please volunteer by giving me personal message through the chat board. Okay, so so let's start with the first important matters about principles of online assessment. So these are based on the USM assessment online guideline that recently being distributed to everyone. So perhaps I would like to highlight here on the 10 principles of online assessment before we go further, because it's very important for us to really understand it before we start thinking about the conversion. So principle number one, so basically when we're talking about online assessment, accessibility issues is very real. So perhaps every of us need to take a kind of proactive approach to contact our students about how well their accessibility to internet connection, the quality of internet connection, and so on and so forth. Maybe that is something that we need to address first before we embark on online assessment. But now, either we like it or hate it, we need to we need to seriously consider online assessment with our current condition. So principle number two, we need to ensure that whatever assessment activities that we will introduce later on, so we need to ensure it's aligned with the learning outcomes. So learning outcomes came from BPK. So that is our main source of reference when we want to convert our face-to-face or the conventional assessment to online assessment, because whatever it is, at the end of the day, once accreditation come to our schools, then you are looking at how well we cover the learning outcomes, though we are doing it online. The third principle, so basically we need to create authentic assessment tasks. It means that it's not just any task of assessment we need to give students, we need to think through and to think again and again about the quality, the validity, the reliability, and the impact of the assessment task to ensure that whatever we give to them is aligned with what they are expected to do at the end of the program or our courses. And number four is about trying to avoid any assessment activity that are not relevant. Try as much as possible. For example, let's say if you are talking about the skills, so do not use something else that are not assessing the skills. For example, let's say using the essay, then you are basically looking at the essay, looking at the practical skills. So I think that is something irrelevant skill that we are using the assessment. So perhaps this kind of assessment should be avoided at all. But yeah, I think there is something that we need to consider. Then afterward, we discuss about this a lot when we go through the example that I'm preparing for you. And then principle number five is about planning assessment according to student learning time, because we need to remember when we introduce online assessment, definitely the times required for the students to be online is more, and then we are trying our best not to increase student learning time, even though we are converting the face-to-face to online assessment. And usually the general rule in terms of SLT, online assessment or maybe online, whatever online learning assessment whatsoever, the rule is they need more time. Because maybe the technical issue, maybe certain people could not stand too long in front of computer, and certain the student or maybe student people are not so tolerant with facing display, particularly the computer screen and so on and so forth. So I think we need to consider that. So we are trying our best to maintain student learning time as it is, even though we converting our assessment into online assessment. But later on we discuss about this in a bit detail with examples. Principle number six, whatever we do, we need to communicate with the students, because I think the most important things about students in terms of assessment is we need to ensure that they are well informed what are the tasks will be given to them. Otherwise, we can create a lot of issues because students are not aware of the assessment methods, what the methods, they are not very familiar, and sometimes that will impair their performance later on. Then once we got the performance low, then looking at we are not communicating with them properly, I think that we create a lot of problems. So perhaps we need to consider this seriously as well for communicating with the students about the changes. And principle number 7, we are trying our best to ensure that the methods we are using is not only one single tool. So perhaps we need to consider multiple assessment methods to ensure the triangulation of the performance based on either indirect or direct assessment that we put online is referring and reflecting their ability as a students and achieving the learning outcome that we are expected them to achieve at the end of the program. So there is other important principles as well. And then the next principles, number 8, is perhaps when we do or when we create our assessment task, try our best to encourage reflections, because based on research, I think the most important part of learning is reflection. If they can reflect on whatever they learn, so they will be better, and then perhaps the online assessment will become more interesting and not and encouraging them to learn more beyond what we expect them to learn. The second last, usually there is something that's online assessment, because if you are using eLearn, I think there is room for feedback. There are so much room for feedback to them, and students basically are looking forward for the feedback. Whatever they submitted to you, they expected us to give feedback. So perhaps give a timely feedback. Timely feedback meaning that not so immediate, but perhaps we need to clearly mention to them, maybe after 1 week or 2 weeks after you submitted the assignment or maybe essay or whatsoever task that we are given to them. So perhaps that will be clearing up the expectation of the student. With the current generation, I think they like to get very immediate feedback rather than delayed feedback. So I think providing time and give a clear indication that we are going feedback, but not so immediate, but later on, maybe 1 or 2 weeks later. But if you can give immediate feedback, it's better. That's very suit with our current, our generation, the current generation. They like to get a thing immediately. And the last principle is because remember when we all convert our assessment to online assessment, definitely there are so many assessments will be given to the students. So therefore, I think at a course or maybe at the program level, I think we need to have a well spaced out assessment schedule. Do not give so much at one time, otherwise it will create not good impact. It's very negative impact to the cognitive load or maybe the burden of assessment to our students. So I think the number 10 principle is quite important, because we need to give time for them to go through the assessment task at appropriate and sufficient time. So I think that is something, principles of online assessment. Before you go further, anything that you would like to ask on these principles? Anything? Or maybe I can show, maybe there is the box. Okay.
Tak ada soalan lagi.
No questions so far.
Okay, baru ada. Puan Mariam.
Can we reveal mark for ourselves? Okay, never mind. We will talk about the revealing mark whatsoever afterward at the end. Okay, so keep that question. Okay, no question. I think can I move on? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so before we go further, perhaps just to have a revision on learning outcome from OBE perspective. I think now we are in the OBE world. In fact, so looking at the OBE, it means that whatever we do, we start with a clear picture what is important for students to be able to do. So this is something learning outcome at the end of the course. What our students are expected to do and be able to do to demonstrate for them that they are competent enough at that particular level. So there is something, and there is something very much related to assessment. Afterward, I will illustrate it in diagram. Okay, now, this is students. So basically, the center of our focus is student. whatever it is, because they are basically, if you want to call it as client, maybe they are our main client or stakeholders. So basically we have this program learning outcome, course learning outcome, and we have a subject learning outcome, we have specific learning outcome. There are so many learning outcome, but just remember that what the student be able to do at the end of our class or maybe course or program in terms of the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. And looking at this, there is where we align with our teaching and learning activities, but today we are not talking about teaching and learning activities online, but we are focusing on the assessment. However, even though we are not talking about teaching and learning activities, the assessment is very much linked and connected with teaching and learning activities. So even though we are talking about assessment, but we need to think that what kind of teaching and learning activities that we have offered to the students while they are learning online, and we are assessing that online as well. So there is something, and then later on, based on all this interaction, we will conclude into student learning time. Okay, student learning time. So this is where we will need to define what basically student learning time based on the MQF or MQA guideline. So basically, all these activities will contribute to student learning time, and the focus still on the students. And just to summarize all this in terms of student learning time, so basically, time that students spend for learning, teaching, and assessment activities, and perhaps there are basically three: the contact learning time, it means that the face-to-face, either it's a real time, basically it's a real time, and the independent learning, usually in online we call it non-real time, and preparation time as well as assessment time. But for today, we only focus on preparation time and assessment time, because I'm not going to talk about the teaching learning SLT. So just focus on assessment SLT. Okay, I hope that I cleared up some some conceptions about student learning time. So now I'm going to focus on the assessment and learning outcomes, student learning times, and how do we use all these indicators to help us to convert our face-to-face or whatever conventional we are doing now into online assessment. Now, so the 6 steps to conversion of face-to-face. Before we go further, perhaps I would like to I would like to ask whether do you have anything to clarify on these 3 matters? Do you have anything? Because it's very it's very important, because basically the further discussion is on all these matters, learning outcome and student learning times, but basically from BPK. Do you have anything else? Any question that we need to clarify first? Okay, silent mean nothing, isn't it?
Dr. Wan Mariam was asking about what is contact learning time, Dr. Saiful.
Contact learning time is when we are with our students in real time. It means that the face-to-face lah, basically. That time we spend with students. For example, if let's say, for example, for face-to-face in the not online, usually the teaching, the tutorial, the lecture, maybe the group discussion when we are there, or if online, maybe you are communicating them. For example, today we are basically contact learning time now, through Microsoft Teams. So this is real time engagement. So that's mean the contact learning time. Okay, is that clear enough? How to see the comment?
Prof, I have one question, Prof. Can I ask, because I cannot chat?
Oh, you cannot chat. Yes, you can ask. Yes.
Prof, I want to ask, let's say, is it the conversion is same with the normal subject and also the laboratory activities, Prof?
Afterward, we discuss about that afterward. Is it?
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
So because this is just a concept of student learning time. So afterward, when we go to the examples, maybe you can ask this question. Is that okay?
All right, Prof.
Okay, good. Okay. So maybe I can proceed, because the most interesting part when we go through examples, particularly because I'm also from the medical background, we have a kind of similarity. Maybe we can share something on that afterward. Okay, now the 6th step to conversion of face-to-face. So basically, this is based on USM guideline, because I'm using the USM guideline because this is our guideline. So I'm trying my best to illustrate the 6th step on the conversion, and hopefully throughout the steps you can ask me anything, and perhaps if I cannot if I cannot answer, maybe other people who are more experienced with more experience can help me to share your experience on how to handle that particular situation. Okay, because I'm not the expert on everything, but I'm sharing something that I know of with everyone. Okay, so the first step. So the first step is we need to list out the assessment methods by learning outcome based on BPK. So basically, we are using the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domain. So now, how we do it? So in BPK, I hope everyone can reflect on your own BPK. I just use an example of BPK with permission, because I already asked permission from Dr. Irwan. Okay, Dr. Irwan gives me permission to share the BPK of his program as an example. So basically, we can get the assessment methods from item 9 in BPK. So as I'm showing you now. And then for further detail in terms of learning outcomes, so you can go to item 11. So this is basically the learning outcome. In particular from here, you can see here, this is hasil pembelajaran khusus, there's a course learning outcome. This is the PO. So PO is not so important in our conversion, but the most important is the learning taxonomy, the C3, P3, A3. And then maybe I will touch a little bit, just a revision or refreshment on the learning taxonomy in the diagram afterward. Okay, this is the most important, and this as well. So this is something, the first step, we need to list out everything. Now, let's put on some revision. So basically, there's a PO. I just purposely put a MQF 2.0 PO just for exposure, but basically we're using the old PO, the MQF 1.0, and this is something, the cognitive, the C1 until C6, affective A1 until A5, and the psychomotor from P1 until P7. And if you're looking at this learning outcome C3, P3, and A3, basically they are expected students to apply knowledge, and then they value the knowledge, and then they can imitate a certain skill that they learn from the courses. So basically C3, A3, and P3, and basically there is a requirement for any undergraduate program. So under program at least at C3, A3, and P3 is basically based on minimum requirement. So basically that's a learning outcome. Maybe we can just illustrate a little bit more, a bit more specific. Just I extract from the BPK, and then we can say just so we are expecting them to apply the knowledge, and then they have to imitate certain skill, so they can based on certain guide, and that's why it's guided response, and they need to value whatever they learn and then put in certain context. And if you're looking at the PO and then learning taxonomy and what I expected student to do, and if we put the final examination just now, essay is basically for C3, and it contributed to 40%. This is based on the original, it's not yet converted. It's original from BPK before the conversion. So basically you put down, so basically the final examination is 40% and coursework is about 60%. And if you're looking at the methods of assessment for the coursework, is about task. Task is tugasan, test is ujian, report, and then laporan and presentation and persembahan. So basically, this is how the program coordinator putting on the assessment, and basically, covering all those C3, P3, and A3. If I can put on the diagram as well, that's a learning outcome there: construct suitable domain, learning model, learning theory, develop and manage learning tools that promote online learning, demonstrate online presentation. And if I put theme 2, so it looks like this. Now the cognitive for EW is for examination, CW is for coursework, and we can put that majority, I think 70% of assessment assessing cognitive, only 20% psychomotor, and only 10% affective. So these are the division of assessment method according to cognitive, psychomotor, affective, and with the weightage. So basically, this program is, I think, because it's focused more on cognitive, so a bit more easy for us to convert to online assessment. So those with the heavy on psychomotor, maybe we need to think differently. So at this junction, any question? Yeah, at the junction in terms of how do we map the assessment from BPK to visualize it into this, into this structure. Anyone would like to ask anything? Or if everything clear, I can move on with the next slide.
Dr. Gujit Kaur was asking about what about master's level? Which level is expected?
Master level basically for the cognitive is C4, because master level is level 7. So level 7 is C4, and then psychomotor is still P4. Yeah, I think P4, and then for affective is A3. Yeah, I think that is the minimum that a master student should attain at the end of the course. It means that if you go back to so basically master is at least not only apply, but they need to able to have the ability to analyze, analyze the situation, not only apply. And for the effective, stay valuing is the minimum, but mechanism mean that they can do on their own work, on their own with minimum supervision. This one. So this one is a lot of supervision because imitation, but this one we expect more independent. So that is mechanism. So basically this is a master level. So there is a difference between undergraduate level 6 and level 7. Any more questions?
Okay, no more.
No more. Okay. So far so good. Right? If you have anything, just unmute your mic and you can ask anytime, anything. Okay. I'm trying to illustrate as best as I can. Hopefully, you can see the first step before we convert our assessment, the face-to-face assessment to the online assessment, because it is very important step. If we do not have this clear picture in the first step, we might have problem when we want to convert our assessment, the current assessment, to online assessment. So, okay, now the second step. So after we have mapped our assessment methods by learning outcomes that we did just now, so we need to calculate SLT of each assessment method. Okay, so where to get all this information? Basically, you can get from mainly from 10, 11, 12, 13. You mean that lampiran B, if you refer to BPK, there will be lampiran B, at the back, I think near to the end of the document. But sometimes people are using item 9 as well as their, as their preparation time. So basically 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is basically something that you want to refer when we extracting the SLT from the BPK. So now, based on this, just to make it easier, so I just put into this table. So based on that table, and I already clarified with the owner of the program, so this is correct. Okay, so basically, if you still remember that I told you in the earlier slide, so we have assessment time and preparation time. We have assessment time and we have preparation time. So basically, so for final examination, so like 2 hours and 8 hours of preparation. Where do we get that? Okay, here, penilaian 2 hours, and then persediaan penilaian 8 hours. So basically, if you're looking at the MQA guideline on SLT, so basically every 3 hours of final examination, you can give students about 10 to 20 hours of preparation time. So that is the rule. So 3 hours. So basically, you're allowed to give 10 to 20 hours, depending on your judgment as an expert in the field. So if you think that the assessment is complicated, a bit difficult. So you can give the highest hours of preparation time. Maybe for example, let's say if let's say it's 2 hours, so you divide it by 3 and multiply by 20. So maybe you can do third of 20. So basically it's about how many hours? Maybe 14 or 15 hours. If you are thinking that the final examination is difficult for the particular cohort of students, so you can adjust that. But this course, I think that they take the lowest, so 2 hours, and they give the lowest numbers of hours, 8 hours. So basically the SLT is about, you just add on assessment time, 2 hours for the essay. This one is assessment time, mean that the contact, mean that students come to the hall for 2 hours and answering the question, the essay. But before that, they have a preparation time 8 hours. So the total SLT is just add on the sum of assessment time and preparation time. So it takes the total will be 10 hours. So if you go back, so basically 2 add with 8, the sum will be 10. Okay, so that is how we get the 10 hours. So it is very important. And then let's go to the coursework. So we have task, test, report, presentation. And let's go to the something that is very direct there, task and presentation, because it's already clearly mentioned here. Pembentangan 2 jam, persembahan 2 jam. Persembahan is the task. Persembahan is the task. Oh, sorry. Okay, the task. The task is persembahan. Okay, in that term. So 2 is about 4, and then so based on MQA guidelines, every 1 hour of pembentangan or persembahan, we need to give preparation time 3 hours. So that's why you can see that pembentangan 2, and then preparation time is 3. So 2 times, so the student get extra 6 hours for them to prepare the pembentangan or the persembahan. So basically this is how we get, I just put it here, 2 hours of assessment time. It means that they're with us when they are presenting or maybe doing the task, and 6 hours is we give to them for them to prepare. So basically 8 hours SLT, 8 hours SLT. Okay, so and then the test and report. Okay, the test and report, basically you put, there's a test and there's a report. The test is basically they put in tugasan as well. So they say that diserap masuk in 9. So they mean that they already included in this 7 hours. Okay, because it's about, it is indirect assessment. That's why we do not have face-to-face time. That's why we do not have the face-to-face time. Everything in the preparation time. We give them either enough or sufficient time for them to carry out the assessment task. So that's why no direct contact, it's just indirect. So indirect, we do not need to put assessment time because they are not coming to us, in front of us and taking any test, just submitting certain things. For example, assignments, reports and many more. So just give them total hours that we think and expect for them to be able to carry out the task. So 7 hours, and then in total, okay, for the total SLT for assessment is about 40 hours, and then preparation time 20 hours and assessment time 20 hours. So, oh sorry, this is not miscalculate this one. This is 6 hours, and this one is about 34 hours. Miscalculate. Okay, 6 hours. Let me make correction. 6. Sorry. Buat malam-malam macam ni lah. Okay, now, okay, so, and then, because of COVID right now, okay, they have, I think, MQA give a discount to everyone in the SLT. So at least 70% to be covered. Okay, sorry, this one is 4 point. Okay. 70, 22 pula kot. 22 point. Okay. Okay, safe miscalculation. Okay. So basically, so the minimum in the COVID situation right now, the minimum hours that we can reduce to ensure that we met the MQA requirement is 28 hours for this course. So every course you have your own minimum hours for COVID. Okay, so this is basically the real, the 100%, the original, and this one is for the COVID situation. Okay, at this moment, do you have any question? I hope that I'm trying to illustrate as simple as possible, but if you have anything to ask, please do so.
May I ask a question?
Yes, yes. Please, please.
How come the test doesn't have any allocation of time for assessment?
Because that need to be referred to your, because they put here, because the test is basically the project. So I clarified with the, the coordinator. Basically, this already be put here because it's no indirect presentation, indirect contact with the students. So that's why they can just give 7 hours of preparation for them to produce the result.
Oh, so it's more like an assignment. It's not really
Yeah,
a
it's kind of assignment. Yes,
Okay.
yes, the kind
But
of
if you have
assignment.
an online quiz or online test, then you have to give them time for assessment, right?
Yeah, yeah. But this one we are talking about the not yet conversion. It's not. It's a before conversion. This only we want to trickle down all the elements so that afterward we want to convert online assessment, we'll be using this information to ensure that even conversion we still maintain the
Okay.
hours of not assessment for the preparation or for the for them to do direct assessment. So basically, this is our guide to design our online assessment letter.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Any question? Any more questions before we go to the third step?
We received a document, the USM online assessment guidelines. So this is all based on that, right? Because it looks similar.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So
Okay.
basically, I'm using the USM guideline.
Okay.
So yeah,
All the
all,
hours are all mentioned there.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
So
Dr.
this,
Saiful.
yeah.
Yes, I just want, can you just clarify on the 70% recover? I mean, is it that's the minimum hours that we have to cover during the COVID-19?
Yeah, yeah. This is something that minimum, so that's acceptable. It means that if you want to reduce, because now COVID, because certain situation, they allow us to reduce, until we cover 70%. It means that 30% reduction of the original SLT. So we are allowed to do that.
Okay, okay. So just to recap what Dr. Burjit said, that if you have a test that is like, even though it's online assessment, we actually can put it under the test and the number of hours also, right? We don't have, because that is based on the BPK that you are using as an example.
Yeah, because this is a before online.
Okay.
The BPK is before online.
Yeah,
Now we
but
are trying to
also
convert.
on the assessments that done by this lecturer, because most of us, we have our tests actually face to face. Yeah, so if that's the case, right, we have to put the assessment time as 1 hour if we have it.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah. Yes, yes, correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So this is the second step, mapping. So the first step is about mapping our, our methods by learning outcome. We have done that one. Now the second step is mapping the assessment method by SLT. So this is something that, I'm showing you. So now we have a clear idea how many hours basically we have to cover for assessment. Okay, for assessment. Any more question before you go to step 3? Maybe 1 or 2 more questions. If you have any.
Doktor,
Ya.
saya tanya, SLT khusus ni 80 jam. Kalau
I could not hear you well because, can you repeat again the questions?
the total student learning time, is it 80 hours?
This 40 hours for assessment. But for the total, so basically the total is I think 120.
Oh, okay.
For the whole course, 120. I think if I could remember correctly. This course is 3 credit, so the total hours is 120. But for the assessment hours is only 40 out of 120. So because that's included the teaching learning, another 80 is about teaching learning. Any last question before we go on with the next step? Okay, I believe everyone follow me and can understand what I have explained. So thank you. So just to visualize that, okay. So basically, in terms of the exams and in terms of the coursework according to the learning taxonomy, so basically we have final examination is about 10 SLT, okay. And for the coursework, for the cognitive, about 15 SLT. For the psychomotor, we have 7 hours. Effective, we have 8 hours. So 8 hours, 7 hours, 15 hours, and 10 hours of final exam. So all this information will help us to redesign or maybe to convert our current assessment into online assessment as well. Because even though we are converting from conventional to online, so the SLT is very important because that indicates which assessment methods is suitable to replace the current face-to-face if it is replaceable. So remember that. So these are the reference you are using, guided with learning outcome. So learning outcome is not changed anything. We are covering the most of the learning outcome as stated in original BPK. And then the assessment as well, we are trying to cover as much as possible in terms of student learning time, and we do not want to introduce any extra SLT because extra SLT meaning more work to students. So we are trying to avoid that. Now, let's move to step number 3, to convert the exam to the coursework according to desired assessment option and basically to the online. Okay, so basically now we are talking about online. And then now let's refresh. This is the original. I put original and converting to be converted later on. So this is basically the face-to-face assessment as we have discussed just now based on BPK. So if I can put everything on the slide. So basically, in our original BPK, before we want to convert into online assessment, we have essay that's about 10 SLT, task and test is about 15 SLT, report 7 SLT, and presentation 8 SLT. So everything in order and without any change in SLT for the original. Now, based on this information, now let's go to this. The converting process. So we are thinking now from that information that we already mapped just now. So we are thinking about which of this assessment is good to be put online or maybe to be replaced with a different assessment tool that is more suitable to cover the learning outcome, okay, through online assessment. So this is something that we are thinking right now to be converted. So that's why I put yellow color. This is something that we want to convert. Okay, whether the essay, task, test, report, presentation is still relevant, or maybe we need to change into a different method of online assessment. Now let's go one by one. And in COVID, we are allowed. In COVID, we are allowed to reduce the original SLT to this SLT in the red color. So you mean that from 10 just now, So we are allowed to reduce up to 7, 11, 5, 6. So these are the range that we are going to refer when we are trying to convert into online assessment, particularly in the COVID situation right now. So this is the basically the general idea. I hope you follow me right now. You can follow me. Now, before we go to conversion, we need to understand that what we are doing now in term assessment, basically, we are collecting evidence of learning attainment. Okay, so I repeat again, it's about collecting evidence of learning attainment. Based on that evidence, we want to conclude that whether the students are competent, not competent, or safe, unsafe, before we can give them somehow grade, or maybe pass fail, or maybe a certain certain certification or what's on. That is depend on our course. And basically for the assessment, we have these two types, whether it's directly or indirectly. So what do we mean by direct, indirect? So basically, assessment that need to be demonstrated in front of us is observe, something that we are observing the student to do something. So indirect is basically assessment that describe learning. We do not observe them, but based on the task we're given, we know that the learnings occur. So we call it unobserved assessment. So these two things that we really need to understand, particularly in online, because online to observe is challenging, but we can still do it, in a way. But a lot of the online assessment will be more inclined to an unobserved, mean that we give a certain task for them to do, and those tasks, if completed, it will describe certain learning evidence. Okay, I will give an example afterward. Some examples, this is something that is recommended for the online oral examination, interview, viva, or maybe online presentation, final year project presentation, progress presentation, etc. Or maybe 360 assessment. This one I think a bit difficult, but it can be done if you have a supervisor, lecturer, peers who are interacting during the teaching learning online, because there's certain thing that we can still assess through 360 assessment. But observe is challenging in online. But for the unobserved, for example, online quiz, just put the quiz. If they're able to answer, then we consider that they are able to cover certain learning outcome. Project assignment, written assignment, or maybe the good thing, the best thing, I think, e-portfolio. They put all the evidence of learning in the portfolio, and based on the portfolio, we review, and then we verify, and maybe we call them just for clarification with the online viva. So this is the hybrid, direct, indirect, to ensure that we are very sure that the student have attained what is supposed to attain at the end of the program in terms of learning evidence. So this is direct, indirect. So this concept is quite important to be understood before we embark to online assessment, because a lot of things will be based on these two interaction, observe and unobserved, or maybe we can marry between observes and observes according to the design that we like to put on afterward. Any question on this concept, the learning evidence?
Could you explain e-portfolio?
E-portfolio?
Yeah.
E-portfolio just the collection of learning evidence by the student. For example, the student put all the evidence for them. For example, the assignment, the feedback, the supervisor evaluation, the attainment in certain course, and many more. So put together, and then based on the evidence, we evaluate them. Just like a thesis, but there is a thesis for their learning achievement, something like that. So it's a collection of evidence of learning. So they will put all the evidence to support that they already attained the learning outcomes.
Prof, I have two questions.
Yeah.
First thing is that we are compromising on the student learning time, right?
Okay, so depend. If you think that you can cover 100%, just go on. But if let's say you do not have enough time, we have we because a certain limitation, we can go up to 30% reduction.
If we are compromising on the student learning time, and we are still charging the student same rate, it's unfair to the student, right?
Okay. Okay, I think that's need further discussion because certain situation we need to define into of fairness basically. Okay, in current situation, maybe we need to discuss about that in different platform because definitely logically, if less time, I mean that we need to pay less basically.
Right,
That's a
because
logic.
charging the student based on the credit hours. From the credit hours, we come out the student learning time, right? If we are not spending time on the required student learning, they're compromising on it. I think it's not fair to charge the student at the same rate.
So we are compromising in terms of assessment at this moment, but I think the teaching learning, sometimes you can increase on that. Assessment, you're compromising, but you can compensate with the teaching learning, more session with, with the students, more guidance with the students. Just reduce the assessment is okay, but maybe you can top up with, more teaching learning session with them. So you can balance between the credit. Otherwise, like you said, we are charging as usual, but we give less than usual.
Okay. That's something to think about. Thanks.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question before I move?
Yeah, we can keep to the same SLT as before COVID, right?
Yes.
Don't have to change. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But if you choose, for example, due to limitation, certain limitation, you can go as 70% coverage. So that is allowed.
Prof, one more question, because you're talking about exam and coursework, right? Now exam becoming so small, you see, it's almost like 20%, 80% going to be the coursework. So one of the problem is we have this bell curve, end of the day we have to adjust the students to a certain number of A's and A minus and etc. Now with the coursework, it's going to be very difficult on us,
Yeah, I think it's very challenging, definitely for
most of the time, like my courses, they are done in a group. Most of the time, they are done in a group. So the individual assessment difference will be very, very little. So eventually, when final exam comes, we got a tough time to draw the bell curve.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you move from, just give example, when we move from 50 to 50, we earlier was 50-50. Then we moved from 60-40. Now we're moving 80-20. So the coursework takes almost 80%, and the difference between the students won't be that much, And the exam's not going to make much significance. So I feel we're going to have a tough time the year, and I feel very unfair to just drop the students just to fulfill the bell curve line.
Okay, I think at this moment, because we are learning basically right now, because it's our first time that we convert everything online right now due to the situation. That I think if the situation is improved, maybe we can learn from this experience and we can design a better assessment design, perhaps. This matter is due to the current situation. We had never had before, isn't it? But
sorry, can I just move my exam straight to the coursework, no exam? Because the exam going to be open book, it doesn't make much difference between the coursework.
Yeah, I think that is what we're learning now. I think maybe after this COVID end, I don't know when, but hopefully soon. Maybe this feedback you can share with the deans, and then deans share with the top management. Perhaps I think moving toward 100% coursework based on our experience is not too bad, isn't it? If based on your experience and our experience as well, I think that is something that's evidence already that we can move to 100% coursework if do it properly.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Dr. Raja from GSB. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself.
No problem. I also forget to introduce myself as well.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Can we move on now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So now, there is something that you can find it in the assessment online guideline. There is basically a simple guideline, okay, based on the common assessment method, but it is not everything. Just a simple guideline for us to guide in this current situation. For example, the general rules for any written assignment, this is for coursework, it's not for final exam. It's a general rule for coursework assignment. A written assignment, every 1,000 words, we need to give student 5 hours of SLT. Okay, so this is general rule. Every 1,000 words of written assessment, we give 5 hours. It means that if you decided to give only 500 words, so it means that 500 divided by 1,000 and you got a 2.5 hours. So just as easy as that. If you are thinking about doing written assignment. For project assignment, usually they give more time for preparation because it's project. For example, pre-recorded video, podcast, multimedia preparation, and many more. Then we give more hours, 1 hour usually for them to present the project, and then 4 hours for preparation. This is a general rule. Okay, but if you are thinking that you need to give more hours, maybe you can increase a little bit, 4 to 5, depending. But we recommend follow this guideline so it's more consistent. For online oral examination, every 1 hour, for example, Viva, oral presentation, interview, give extra 3 hours for them to prepare. So the total SLT will be 4. And similarly, online presentation, seminar, online seminar, maybe a progress presentation, whatsoever, anything that need for them to do online presentation. 1 hour, give 3 hours preparation time, and then the SLT 4, and so on and so forth. So basically, it is something that I'm already told you just now. It's about time of assessment, but for the online, usually put real time and non-real time, and the preparation time. So that's a term a bit different, but the concept still maintained. Still maintain the time for assessment and then time for preparing to the assessment. And online quiz, 1 hour to 1 hour presentation and 2 hours. So it's up to you which one to decide. Okay. Now let's go back to our example just now. Okay. Now that's one just for input. Now let's focus on the course just now to be converted. So now I'm summarized that the minimum we can go for to redo is 7. And then minimum here 11, 5, and 6. So task, test, essay, report, now we are going to scrutinize one by one whether we want to maintain, or maybe you want to just replace with a better online assessment that suit with the learning outcomes. Okay, now let's focus on the exam first, because as one of our colleagues mentioned just now, it's about 80-20 or 100% coursework. Okay, now we have two options. We have 2 options. Option 1, we want to convert all the final examination to coursework. It means that we use the option 100% coursework. It means that the 40% EW, the examination, will be converted into 40% coursework just now. And the SLT also must remain similar. It means that 7 to 10 SLT will be also added to coursework, the yellow one. So the SLT must be maintained. And the option 2, 20%, we want to just maintain 20% exam and then 80%. So it means that the 40% now, we redistribute into maintain 20%, but we add on another 20% to the coursework. And if we put the SLT into consideration, it means that 3.5 to 5 SLT for exam and coursework. So basically, we have reduced the time for exam, so almost half. Then let's go to the option 1. For example, here, let's say if we want to maintain essay, before essay is more the exam, but now maybe essay we can convert to written assignment, because we have 7 to 10 SLT. Maybe we just give them about 1,500 to 2,000 words of written assignments that will cover this learning outcome. So there is one option. Okay, but you can think of any. Just this one is just example, because I don't want to change too much, because essay also can be done online, particularly under written assignment. Just a matter of we need to decide how many words, because remember 1,000 words equal to 5 SLT. So 7 to 10, so basically 1,500 to 2,000 words roughly to cover the SLT if we decided to go for 100% coursework. So this is option 1. Okay, now option 2. So based on this one, option 2, so we want to go for 20% exam and 20% coursework. Due to face-to-face exam in a hall is not so possible right now. So the 20%, okay, the 20% maybe we consider online viva. So basically online viva, we just viva them on the topics related to learning outcomes. And the time is about 3 to 5 SLT. And if you still remember, for the online viva, for 1 hour online viva, we can give 3 hours of preparation, and then the total is 4. So just nice. It's 3 to 5 SLT, 4 hours. So maybe we can increase the preparation time for them, maybe for the viva. So basically, just nicely suit within SLT. We are not changing SLT. We are not changing learning outcome, though we change the method of assessment from essay just now to online viva, just to cover the learning outcome. So it can be done online viva. Just a matter use. You need to set up certain questions, what sort of questions, certain rubric, and the grading part. That's the additional thing that we need to do for the online viva. Otherwise, no, more or less can be done at this moment, and we are covering enough time. We are giving enough time as well to students, not compromising learning outcome and SLT. And the 20% coursework, maybe because I don't want to think anything else, still I want to maintain essay, but I reduce it to 1,000 words. It's about 5 hours. So just nice, no? 1,000 words for 5 hours. So still, though we already changed the method of assessment, but the SLT and learning outcome we still maintain intact. It's not changing anything. So we're still covering the learning outcome, even though we are converting to the online assessment as I am showing to you right now. Any questions? Okay, if no question, then I can proceed. So now we have done with the final examination. Yeah.
Just one question. If you are saying that if we convert 40% exam work to 40% coursework, total 100%.
Yeah.
So does that mean that in that 40% coursework now it's just essay, and that we do not need to use any quiz or things like that?
You can go up to not changing. If let's say you are more comfortable with the quiz whatsoever, no problem. You can go for quiz, but you need to mention how many questions that you like to give, because one question, depending on whether you are giving the short answer quiz or maybe MCQ quiz. So usually 3 minutes per question. So if let's say 7 to 10 SLT, how many questions you like to cover? Because 1 hour is about 20 questions. If to meet the 7 hours, 140 questions. So that's quite a lot, for quiz to cover 7 to 10 SLT.
Yeah. What I mean is that you are giving an example just essay, but you can also 40% is essay. But actually, it can be a blended or mix of essay, science essay, quiz, and all the other things.
Yeah, can definitely. But can, no problem. But please be aware of student load, because the more assignment you give to them, the more load basically.
Yes, understood.
Yeah, this one because I just try to maintain as original as possible, yet online. Because I do not want to interfere with the flow of program, because students already mentioned about essay. So they know the essay just a matter of now from the final exam and then just convert it into assignment, that's all. So it's not much burden to the student. Okay, we are thinking about the space out of the assessment as well. Any more question? Okay, if no more, then now we have done with the final exam to the coursework either 100% or 80%. Now we are talking about the coursework that already in the coursework. Okay, so now because remember this coursework originally is 60%. This is the original one. So do we need to alter anything in this situation? Because previously task and test is basically perhaps face to face. Now it's online. Perhaps no. To me, I think task and test look similar. Okay, so this my proposal is just to put a task. So giving task to them about 11 to 50 SLT, but the submission through online. That can be done through e-learning or maybe email to the supervisor. And then for the report, maybe just maintain the report as it is, but the submission is online. And then for presentation, maybe just converted into online presentation. Okay, then because 2 hours presentation, just now we can still maintain online presentation for 2 hours, and then with the similar SLT. So basically, for the current coursework, not so much changes should be done for the online purpose, because we can still maintain the current coursework but with different mode of delivery, which is online. Previously, it's more face to face. I think it is something that doable, and then so this is something that just if let's say this 100%, if I remap. Okay, if I remap it, it means that the quality still task and essay, but now you can see that no more final examination, just coursework, because everything 100% right now. I just remap. And then for the 80%, we can see that just a new additional assessment is online Viva. The rest we maintain, but no more test is combined under task. So basically, we're trying to maintain 5 assessment methods at what it was in the original. So basically, in terms of number of assignment to the student remain intact, even though we are converting to online assessment. So that hopefully, with a similar, more or less, we hope that it will facilitate the students to to do online assessment. So because previously also 5, now it's only 5 as well. So not much changes. So with these changes and a similar number of assignments or maybe assessment, and then similar learning outcomes and similar learning student learning time, hopefully everything will be maintained as it is, even though it's online assessment. Now we are comparing. For example, after that, we are trying to compare the option 1, option 2 in terms of SLT. You can see that I just summarized SLT. I don't put the independent time, so on and so forth, because I expect you already understood that. So basically, if you go for the minimum, 29, still more than the minimum requirement for the COVID. But if we maintain the whole thing, we still maintain the whole 40 SLT for assessment, either for option 1 or option 2, similar. So basically, we are maintaining the learning outcomes alignment. We are trying to maintain the the SLT, and see, we are trying also maintain the number of tasks given to the students. And looking at this one, we have a reduced one, which is less assessment task to the student, which is basically student might be very happy with this. And this one stay maintained, not so bad, Still, the student are very happy, because though we are moving to online assessment, yet the task is almost similar, based on the original, in comparison with the original assessment task. At this junction, do you have any question? Yes, if you have any question before we move to next level, step number 4. No? So maybe I should check the chat board. Maybe you asking question how to count. Okay, any questions so far? Anyone would like to ask question at this moment?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
We have already sort of changed our exam to coursework, and it has already been sent up to Majlis and then Senate.
Mm-hmm.
But we may not have followed exactly this thing. We just maintain our SLT and just change the method of assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Senate approves, so we're going to use this for the next year also, right? We are not going to change back to the previous format.
Okay,
We
okay.
just continue it, and even for next semester now I'm thinking for semester 1, all our courses also we want to try to shift more to 100% course work instead of having exam. So is that doable? Is that feasible, or is this only for this COVID situation?
I think this is a very good question. How should I answer? I think we can propose that. I think we can propose to maybe to the NCAA, if the NCAA is around on this platform. We can propose that, not only applicable to this COVID. If we think that is work well, and then is more valid way of assessing our students through coursework. Why not? We can always propose to maintain as it is even after COVID. That's my opinion.
I think especially for masters, I think basic degrees, if they have clinical exams, medical exams, you can't run away from that.
Yeah, definitely.
And laboratory tests. But if it's a master's level, we can always shift the laboratory into reports and assignments where they can use higher order thinking rather than just sitting there for exams.
Yeah. And then, in fact, I think those who have a under professional bodies, they need to follow certain rules and regulation, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
So, but those who are not under any professional body, maybe you can just propose and then let's wait for the response. Maybe I think why not? I don't see any problem in that sense. Okay.
Yeah. As long as it goes through the necessary approvals, I think it should be okay. So we are going to try for next semester.
Yeah, definitely. Why not?
Thank you.
Okay, so can I move on to the next step?
Yes, please proceed, Dr. Saiful.
Okay, so now the fourth step is to decide distribution of weightage for the revised assessment method. So this is another, I think I received quite many questions as well from colleagues about how do we redistribute the weightage, because previously we have different weightage. Now we have add on another 40% from, for example, just now 40% from the final exam, now adding 100% to coursework. How do we redistribute the weightage? So now, the original weightage, this original weightage based on the BPK, the previous BPK. I think I hope just to recap here. Now, let's go to option 1, when we converted to 100% coursework. So how do we convert the weightage? Okay, how do we convert the weightage? So perhaps this is just my, I think, my suggestion, and I think it's quite logical for us to divide based on the student learning time. This is an example. For example, let's say task now is covers about 15 SLT divided 40 and times 100. So it's basically more or less around 37.5%, then 10%, 25, 17. So this is based on SLT. However, okay, the estimation based on SLT sometimes not aligned with the expert judgment. Therefore, this is only guideline. Okay, it's only guideline. If you do not know how to put a judgment, perhaps you can just start by calculating based on SLT. But at the end of the day, the expert must decide. we leave it to the expert. For example, because sometimes though the SLT is more on that, but in terms of the importance to become a competent, competent practitioner, maybe competent engineers, competent scientists, whatsoever, maybe you might change accordingly based on your judgment. Okay, so this is just a rough guideline on how to decide on the weightage based on the new revised online assessment, but you can use your expert judgment as it is. Similarly, to option 2, so basically the online waiver definitely 20%, but how do we distribute the 80%, the additional 20% to each of the assessment tasks? So you can use this calculation, but as always, expert judgment is encouraged because you know better which one is more important than the other one. So perhaps this is just a rough guideline on to give some ideas. Or okay, maybe I can consider 30% for tasks, maybe 10%, or I want to increase the report as 20%, or maybe online presentation I just give only 50% like that. Just at least you have some reference to help you judging which one should be having more weightage or less weightage. At this junction, do you have any question? Okay, sounds good. No questions. And then after you have done that, and then after you have decided the weightage, just need to document. Okay, document the revised assessment method. This is where I think USM already provided this form. I think I think we received this form, and then just put what is the original, and then what is the new suggestion, and so on and so forth. So basically, this program opt for 100%, so everything changed, and then according to their expert judgment in terms of redistribution of the weightage. And finally, once everything being approved, then we need to communicate the revised assessment method to our students so that they are aware, and then hopefully they are prepared for the new online assessment as what we planned, and it's not something that is unfamiliar to them. It's not kind of surprise for them when they are taking the assessment task when we give to them. Okay, so these are 6 steps that I have illustrate to you from 1 until 6. At this moment, at this junction, do you have anything that you like to clarify? Yes, please. Any question? Because after this is my last slide. This one is second last slide. Oh no, third last slide. I have another one.
Prof. Saiful.
Yeah.
How about video assessment? Like we give a task for students to create their own videos on the topic or a question. Is it acceptable, or is it possible, or if it is possible, how we are going to make sure that they meet the BKP or the SLT requirement?
Okay, I think good question. So basically, we need to determine how much the students need to complete the video preparation. For example, let's say they are first year, maybe they are final year, maybe the final year student might have less time, might need less time compared to first year, or maybe they are just equal. So maybe I do not have any clear guideline, but based on the project assignment, we consider this a project assignment. So basically, if 1 hour required for them to spend on any task, perhaps you need to add on another 4 hours. So basically 5. Let's say you think that 3 hours, maybe you give to 15 because you multiply by multiply by 4 mean that 15 hours. So there is a rough guideline I can give to you. There's no exact guideline on how much to be exact, but based on the guideline that I showed to you previously. Where is that? This one.
Let's say we just choose. Let's say we just choose a subtopic, just a subtopic in our lecture that we think it is good for student to give an interactive feedback, or we give them an interactive task. Because I think it's, the younger students nowadays, they like videos, they like doing something with the videos. So we give them a task. They shoot their own video and submit to us.
Okay, so there is no real time. They are not required to present. Just submit the assignment.
No, they just record and they submit whenever they have completed it, and we can review it at any time.
Yeah, then you can just
we give them a timeline. You should submit this by the end of the week or by the end of the month. It's a 2-minute. Usually video is 2 minutes, rarely more than that, or 2 to 3 minutes video. Can we do it as an assessment?
Yeah, why not? But we must ensure that the assignment must be aligned with which learning outcome. Remember?
Okay.
So as long as you can map accordingly, for example here, just I'm showing to you. For example, if you, for example, psychomotor, if interactive, just now what you mentioned, interactive what? Video. Interactive video.
Okay, yeah.
So basically here is interactive video and psychomotor. And then what are the learning outcome as long as you can align, and then how much SLT you want to give to them to complete the video. Even though it's a 2 minutes, but 2 minutes require a lot of a lot of time, even to produce the frame, everything, unless they're professional. But definitely they are student, isn't it? So I think this one is very, very much depending on your judgment as an expert. If you think the students can finish it by 10 hours, then you put 10 hours here.
Okay. How do you calculate the SLT and the minutes of the video?
Yeah.
Is there any specific formula, or because a 2-minute video can mean 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours?
Yes. That one you need to find to ask for the experts lah. Basically, expert we know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we encourage expert judgment in to make sense our student learning time.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
But roughly, if let's say roughly for any project, 1 hour, 4, and then 5. So you can give, for example, let's say 2 minutes is equal to 1 hour, then maybe 5 SLT. For example, let's say 2 minutes is equal to 1 hour, and then preparation time furthermore, and then you can just roughly give 5 for the project assignment. Why not?
My personal opinion, I would agree with the 1 hour, 2 minutes interactive video assessment.
But you need to ask the expert, because if you ask me, non-expert, I don't think even 2 minutes require 1 hour, maybe 10 hours for me. Because I do not have those technical capability. So you really need to ask the expert, and perhaps looking and then based on your experience, previous experience, and when you give 5 hours, how struggle the student to complete the task. That is another.
It's just a question, but just it needs to be answered as a video. So it just in terms of equipment, I think it's very simple. Just need their own with a connected internet. They just shoot a selfie video or a video, and then they submit. So what we assess is the content of the video and how they present it. That's all. It's not they have to do a video film. That is something different story altogether. That one I think need 10 hours, 20 hours. But just a selfie video, I think that is quite simple. I think they can do it. Maybe they would love to do it rather than they have to write and do a PowerPoint. Some I think the newer generation, they just love videos. They love to shoot their own videos.
Then I think
maybe not now, maybe in the future, maybe we have this generation comes into the university. I think we probably need to consider that. I think we have to ready when they comes in.
Yeah, I think if 2 minutes equal to 1 hour, then based on that formula, then 5 SLT lah. No problem. That's
Yes.
sounds reasonable. Okay, good. Yes, any more question? Because otherwise, if you do not have question, then I can conclude already the session. It's very fast. Less than 2 hours.
Okay, Saiful, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My question is actually maybe out of SLT calculation a little bit, but I think it covers the assessment method and everything. Just to make clear, if we have different, sorry, my kids.
No problem.
If we have different types of assessment as you showed just now, on the reports and presentation. Of course, all of these type of assessment has their own standard of rubric, right?
Yes, definitely. The rubric must be there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright, thank you.
Any assessment, particularly related to subjective assessment, okay, non-objective assessment, the rubric is very important because it will guide us on rating the student performance. Particularly if you have more than one examiners or maybe more than one assessor on the task, then rubric is playing a very important role to calibrate the rating, the assessment rating on the students. So I think that's a very good question. Thank you for reminding us on the assessment rubrics. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saiful.
Yes, any more question? We have about another 30 minutes before we can conclude.
Dr. Saiful, Lilis, kenapa in that table 3.5 I just realised lah, MCQ is differentiate from the online quiz.
Okay. MCQ here is meant for final exam. Online quiz meant for the coursework. But during the online quiz, you can include the multiple choice question as well, but that is a different purpose. MCQ here is meant for final exam. Is that clear? Hopefully.
Yes, thank you.
That's why you can see here, 1 hour, we give a 3-hour preparation because it's final examination. Online quiz, we give 1 because it's just, santai-santai. Not really santai, but a little bit less stress lah compared to the final exam.
Prof, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, since we touched that issue of MCQs, yeah, I understand like what you were saying that yes, MCQs, originally they were meant for exam. However, exam as well as test, for instance, are both meant for assessing the knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now, my simple question is, if that is correct, then I will assume that we can still use MCQs for test, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So then we should not perhaps like rule out the use of MCQs in the assessment, isn't it? So we can use MCQs, we can use essays as tests or as assignments after that conversion is done, as like you were teaching us during this session. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Because you can put under what's called test, quiz, ujian, whatsoever, definitely. But why I put differently here, because if, for example, you put in final examination, the calculation will be different. You can see, because the final examination, as mentioned, I mentioned just now, 1 hour, you need 3 to 4 hours of preparation time, more than those are coursework or assignment. So there is some differentiation there if you decide for the final exam. Otherwise, the tools can be used for both. No problem.
All right, thank you. So that answers my question. Thanks.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Vina here from Health Campus.
Vina. Okay.
Yeah. I was wondering about this table as well. This is more about the assessments and how we set it up. When we set it up, they're saying that right now we have to vet for every question, including online quiz. But if student preparation for online quiz is equivalent to the time that they take for answering it. For example, they go through a lesson and immediately after the lesson they do a quiz. Those questions need to be vetted as well.
Oh, okay. You are talking about the vetting process, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry
Okay.
about around
Okay.
topic sikit.
That's okay. I think that's quite relevant in terms of assessment. Okay, looking at the vetting process, I think usually the purpose and of the vetting is basically when it deal with the high stake examination, high stake assessment. You know, that's definitely vetting process is a must. You know, it's a must. But for the lower stake of assessment, just like for example assignment, continuous assessment, so it is recommended for you to is only encouraged for you to go for vetting, because the vetting is very good to ensure the quality of the question, because particularly if, let's say, the you know even though it's a lower stake, but it contributed to the whole assessment mark. So I think there is a need, but it's depending on depending on the resources that you have. If you have, then I would recommend for you to to vet it at least with a few, not the proper. I mean that not the
Full
thorough,
vetting.
just like final examination, but at least have some kinds of the vetting process within department or within the team before you put on put on the online quiz. For example, like us, we discuss. For example, in the COVID, we have some sort of vetting session, and then we just ensure that everything is covered accordingly, and then after that we convert it into online quiz. I think that that's something a good practice, basically. Particularly it contributed to the to decide the fate of students.
Okay, I like
Okay.
that, the fate of the students. Now, there's
The fate
one
of the
more question.
yeah.
One more question I think was missed in the chat also. It was something on my mind also, the integrity of the assessment itself. I think Jacqueline posted it in chat. She mentioned like, how can we be sure that the students are the ones that are completing the assignments, or should this be not a very big concern at this moment? At this moment, I added on. So thank you so much, Dr. Saiful. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of security, I think yes. If you're looking at these two types, definitely the unobserved is always more vulnerable to the security and integrity. Definitely. But how do we overcome? Usually, for the assignment task, you need to ensure that the assignment task is authentic enough and assessing not only recall or copy and paste answer. Okay, so just to ensure the authenticity of the assessment task, because even though those are the people, they can if you give something that can easily be assessed without thinking, without having reading, without having anything or any efforts for them to get the answer, definitely that will be vulnerable. But if you give, for example, higher order, complex analysis, and many more, that's I think even any other people, their friends or their parents want to help also, maybe they are not able to do it unless they understand properly. So that is the challenge for indirect assessment, definitely. Okay.
Dr. Saiful.
Yeah.
Irfan here.
Yes, Prof. Irfan.
Okay, I would like to respond further regarding Dr. Vina's question or concern just now regarding vetting. The basic rule is actually for this vetting, whatever conversion that you guys made from exam work to coursework, everything has to be vetted. That's the basic rule. Let's say, for instance, the example given by Dr. Saiful just now, conversion from exam work to two different coursework. One is quiz, one is test, another one is assignment. So both assignment and the quiz or the test have to be vetted also. So you would like to see the items or the instructions in the assignment as well as the questions in the quiz or test to be vetted, because all this process, this is the same process as we vet the final exam, right? So the same thing for this time around, whereby whatever conversion that you made from the exam work to the coursework has to be vetted. So that's the basic principle. I hope you guys understand on that.
Okay, thank you for
Alright.
for the clarification. Thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Can I ask one question? So regarding that, this question, so it means any original coursework, we don't have to vet, right? Only the conversions.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
It
yes,
depends.
yes.
Because for some programs like in engineering campus, they vet everything, even the coursework, the original
Yeah,
coursework.
that's what happened. That's what I want to
Yeah.
ask. Is it only
Yeah.
the exam components that we converted only that we vet? It doesn't
Yeah,
have
because
other component coursework.
For the main campus, most of the main campus programs, I think we don't vet for the coursework. But the professional bodies like engineering, I know they have to vet all the way from the coursework and then definitely the final exam lah. So it all depends on the courses and the programs.
Yeah. So in terms of the process, I think try to mimic as much as possible the original one.
Yeah, but because if we are going to vet all the assignments, from now, it's going to be very busy all the time among us.
Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, thank you very much for the clarification.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Understood. We are lecturers, isn't it? We understood the burden of assessment. Yes, any more clarification that you like to clarify in this session?
Since Irfan is here, Mr. Irfan is here, may I ask if the Senate approves all our conversion to continuous assessment, so do we use this next year as well?
I'm not really sure, but my earlier understanding, this is only meant for this time around. That's my earlier understanding, but there is no real formal direction or instruction from top management saying that this is going to be continuously done in next year and so on and so forth. My understanding is this is only meant for this time around during the COVID session.
Yes,
Dr.
Ifan, yes.
So next year then you go back to the old BPK, is it? Now we are changing it all and then we go back again.
Dr. Zida, you want to respond?
Yes, as what we had discussed with the management. Okay. This particular BPK conversion is only for this semester, only during the 100% online courses. But if you would like to continue next semester, you need to go through the usual BPK conversion to your school board. Yeah, so the conversion only for this semester as far as I okay.
Okay, so I mean we put in the same thing again for next year, because even now it's going through Majlis, going through Senate, so we have to do it again, is it? For
you can use the existing one. You don't have to convert it all over again if you would like to use the same one, but it has got to go through the board again next semester, because this particular what we are doing now is only for this semester for the 100% online.
Okay. So next semester we do it again.
Yeah, do it again, but use the same one.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned in the earlier to respond previously. I think you can still propose whatever if you think that it's work with your program. Maybe you can propose to the proper channel in the next year or next semester or next academic session. Okay, so any question, because we are reaching 12.
I have one question. I'm not sure it's related. When we have the PO2, we talk about the practical skill. So when they have the test, they actually evaluate on the practical skill through the lab test. But right now, if we are going into the online, how are we going to actually make our question? Is it related to theory, or we still have to replace the lab skill component in the online test?
Okay, so there is in medical school as well. We have it's a challenging time, because we're also involved with a lot of skills, the clinical skill. So what we do now is we just convert something that we can access through online. Anything that not accessible through online, we will do in a later after COVID. Hopefully, COVID will end soon. So that is our initial initial plan lah, basically. So not all can be validly assessed through online, particularly the clinical skill that require you to perform in front of the experts. Anything that indirect, you can always use online assessment.
Another question from me, when will Senate approve these conversions? Because we would like to inform students.
I cannot answer that one. Any Senate member here? Anyone? I think Senate will be very soon, isn't it? The Senate. Next week or this week. That's what I cannot answer, because I'm not the Senate member anyway. Anyone would like to respond and clarify on this when the Senate will approve?
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Senate akan bersidang actually 14 Mei.
Oh, 14 Mei.
Tetapi saya rasa keputusan ni kita buat secara menyeluruh, jadi tak perlu Senate approval lah kot lagi kan. We can always proceed on.
Bukan peringkat TNCA kot.
Ya.
Dato' Farhan kan?
Dato' Farhan. I think it has been instructed to us to do that. So kalau kita dah ikut instruction tu, I think Senate is just like endorsing saja kan. We won't be interfering because it's only for COVID period ini saja.
Yeah. Okay. I hope that clear up the question just now.
I mean, I am not sure, but it's best to ask Prof. Farhan, and then maybe he can emailkan kepada semua staff lah whatever the keputusan is. If not, directly ask VC as the chairman.
Saya Hailiza. Saya pun difahamkan BPK memang tak ditukar ya?
Ya, tak ditukar.
BPK tidak ditukar. It's a one-off punya perubahan. Then if we were to follow the same thing that we do now, then we have to go back to our majlis, change our BPK and so on and so forth.
Yes.
That's what I was informed.
Yes, agreed. Yes, that's what I understood as well. Okay, any more question? Otherwise, I want to conclude. Can I conclude now?
Ya, boleh Dr. Saiful.
Yeah, okay. But if you think that, okay, so maybe this is my final thoughts. So I will put a lead, because we lead, so I try to find what is lead in terms of online assessment. So first is we need to focus on learners. So what student able to do is the central focus, because whatever we change, you must ensure that the learning outcomes will be covered, and SLT must be maintained as much as possible within the limits that we are allowed to. If you want to reduce, we reduce at the certain limit. So, and then learning evidence. So maybe perhaps we need to focus on the learning evidence right now, because online assessment is challenging, particularly for the direct, we call it observe assessment. Perhaps the learning evidence from both sides, direct and indirect learning evidence, will be a good way for us to see and to verify the attainment of knowledge, skills, or maybe abilities that is accessible to online methods. And then the most important, I think, on top of the two is authentic tasks. Authentic assessment tasks that we given to the student is very, very important, because we need to ensure that whatever task given is valid and meaningful, so that the student feel the relevance of those tasks with their learning. And last but not least, I think whatever we do, we need to ensure that we are using defensible method. Okay, assessment method are based on the best practice and evidence-based according to our field of expertise. I think these are the final thoughts that I would like to share with everyone. Hopefully, these final thoughts will give some insight to everyone to redesign or maybe converting your assessment to online assessment with more cautions and more more meaningful to the student as well as to us as educator. I think that's all from me. Thank you so much. And then you can basically download this slide, the whole slide through this link. I already uploaded to the link, and then you can just download it, and perhaps you can use as guides or revision afterward. So thank you so much for attending this session. I hope this session met your expectation and give some insights as well as meaningful and practical experience on how do we convert appropriately according to the 6 step that was in the guideline, the USM online assessment guideline. So perhaps that's all from me. And then any last question that you like to ask me? Otherwise, I will call end to this, to this session.
Can we go back to your last slide? Not fair. You.
That's not fair. Mana?
No, because you present like so many new thoughts in the last slide.
Okay. What are the new thoughts? Okay, just to trigger everyone. Focus on learner, I think I already mentioned it during the OBE. Learning evidence, direct or indirect. Authentic assessment, we already discussed that. And defensible method, everything must be recorded, document, everything. So I think that is just a conclusion out of the session. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other burning questions? Oh, otherwise, thank you so much everyone for very lively discussion. I really appreciate all the questions, and I learned a lot of, from everyone as well through the questions. And anything less from me, I apologize for that. So thank you, and see you again in maybe the future webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and happy lunch.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Saiful. Yeah, thank you for everybody for attending CDAE's webinar today. Hope that you will be able to attend our next webinar. We'll announce later. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just wait for a while for the link for CPD. Yeah. Sorry.